Hello guys, happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are having a great time at home. We're almost done with the stay-at-home mandate. So hang in there guys. Get through this distance tutoring lessons and we can come out on the other side better and brighter than ever. So, today is a good day leading up to the Cold War. So, Tuesday, we are going to talk about containment in Europe. That's our lecture focus. That's what your warm-up and wrap-up questions are going to be based on. We are going to break it down to 4 subsections within the textbook: the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan, the Berlin Airlift, and NATO and national security. So, containment in Europe. And I'm reading from the AMSCO textbook. You can find an online copy on our classroom stream. So let's get it started. Containment in Europe. Early in 1947, Truman adopted the advice of 3 top advisors in deciding to contain Soviet aggression. His containment policy, which was to govern U.S. policy for decades, was formulated by the Secretary of State, General George Marshall, the Undersecretary of State, Dean Acheson, and an expert in Soviet affairs, George F. Kennan. In an influential article, Kennan had written that only a long-term, patient, firm, and vigilant containment of Russia's expansive tendencies. So Russia has always wanted to expand, and we should be prepared for Russia trying to expand. So, this goal would eventually cause the Soviet Union to back off their communist ideology of world domination and live in peace with other nations. So that was the whole goal of Russia, was to dominate the whole world and not to live in peace with other nations. So the goal of the people trying to combat Russia is to do the opposite. Make Russia agree to live in some sort of harmony with other nations in the world. Did the containment policy attempt to do so too much? Among the critics who argued that it did was journalist Walter Lippmann, who had coined the term Cold War. Lippmann argued that some areas were vital to U.S. security, while others were merely BS, merely just facade. Some governments deserved U.S. support, but others did not. American leaders, however, had learned the lesson of Munich, when leaders had given into demands by Hitler for land in 1938. So they learned their lesson through the appeasement strategy of Hitler and his type of expansion. So let's talk about the Marshall Plan and the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. Both of these plans were critical to this whole containment strategy of the United States. So let's first look at the Truman Doctrine. Truman first implemented the containment policy in response to two threats: a communist-led uprising against the government in Greece, and Soviet demands for some control of a water route in Turkey and the Dardanelles. In what became known as the Truman Doctrine, the president asked Congress in March 1947 for $400 million in economic and military aid to assist the free people of Greece and Turkey against totalitarian I know how to say the word, I just can't say it right now. So that word, regimes. So overpowering regimes. While Truman's alarmist speech may have oversimplified the situation of Greece and Turkey, it gained bipartisan support from Republicans and Democrats in Congress. So this was a bipartisan attempt for quote-unquote peace in that region. So that was the Truman Doctrine. That was a plan that went along. Let's talk about the Marshall Plan now. Here's another attempt. After the war, Europe lay in ruins, short of food and deep in debt. The harsh winter of 1946 to 1947 further demoralized Europeans who had already suffered through years of depression and war. Discontent encouraged the growth of the Communist Party, especially in France and Italy. The Truman administration feared that Western democracies might vote the communists into power. In June 1947, George Marshall outlined an extensive program of U.S. economic aid to help European nations revive the economies and strengthen democratic governments. In December, Truman submitted to Congress a $17 billion European recovery program, better known as the Marshall Plan. In 1948, $12 billion in aid was approved for distribution to the countries of Western Europe over a 4-year period. The United States offered Marshall Plan aid to the Soviet Union and its Eastern European satellites, but the Soviets refused it, fearing that it would lead to dependence on the United States. So, this giving out money to help quell the peace, help them grow, help them quell the peace. and establish peace without getting into war. Some may argue that this is a good strategy for the US to be on. Some, on the other hand, will argue that it's not. So let's talk about the effects of the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan worked exactly as Marshall and Truman had hoped. The massive infusion of US dollars helped Western Europe achieve self-sustaining growth by the 1950s and ended any real threat of communist political successes in that region. It also bolstered U.S. prosperity by greatly increasing U.S. exports to Europe. At the same time, however, it deepened the rift between the non-communist West and the communist East. Okay, guys, so that wraps up today's lesson based on your warm-up and wrap-up questions for the day. So, we talked about the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. These two plans were built to boost aid in the area, to quell the tension and maintain peace so we wouldn't go into war. Tomorrow, we are going to look at the Berlin Airlift and NATO and national security. So see you guys tomorrow with a new online lecture.